High Low Sports Podcast, and once again we are talking NBA free agency. For the third week in a row, it seems like as soon as we finish recording, somebody else gets traded or ends up on the move. I'm DJ, joined by Kelsey, and Kelsey, another move in the NBA free agency. This time, Russell Westbrook, the Brody, going to Houston to join his old pal James Harden, and Chris Paul heading to the Midwest at Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's kind of a shock, I guess we should say, the reunion of with Harden and Westbrook, and Chris Paul being left out on the island by himself now. I do call OKC an island, even though it's landlocked, because let's be honest, there's not much going on in Oklahoma City.
The way they get hit by tornadoes and floods, they might end up being an island here before too long, unfortunately. But
yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. We were talking about Oklahoma City, like what were they going to do with free agency, and getting Chris Paul doesn't hurt him at all. I mean, it definitely helps put Steven Adams with somebody who can get him a nice couple alley-oops with Chris Paul. And unfortunately for Paul, I mean, he's got to take that offensive load now, but we'll see. I mean, if there's a guy that's, in his career has proven he can do it, it's definitely Chris Paul. But on the flip side, the main person on that trade, the Westbrook trade, it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with Harden again. It's been 7 years, and they've both become offensive powerhouses, so it'll be interesting to see how they mix.
A lot has changed since last time they played together. I'm going to jump back to Chris Paul and OKC because I wonder what they're planning on doing, because they basically have said, hey, we are tanking, we are building for the future. We are good, but not good enough. So here's Paul George, here's Russell Westbrook, let's trade Steven Adams while we're at it. It looks like they're clearing house. You're not going to be able to trade CP3's contract, most likely. So I wonder if they're just planning on eating that contract and drafting young players and going through with it, or if they have something in mind, because Sam Presti, for all of his shenanigans and losing all these great players over the years, he still drafted them. He still was competitive year in and year out. I almost wonder if they have a plan in mind to trade CP3 to somebody else, maybe a contending team that has a good young piece that'd be willing to part with it, because they do have Shea Alexander, who's a really nice player to build around now. Maybe you get a couple young guys who just haven't proven themselves, then draft all the parts around him. CP3, I don't think there's a good chance he's not staying in OKC very long.
Yeah, it's true. I was actually talking to one of my buddies at work who is from Oklahoma City. Is a Thunder fan.
I'm sorry to him.
Yeah, exactly. I said the same thing. And he was lamenting the trade, but he said he's optimistic because if they keep Chris Paul, that's a Hall of Famer at point guard.
It's something worth watching.
Yeah, exactly. It puts butts in the seat. But at the same time, if they are able to flip Paul for bunch of young assets, or even just a couple young assets and some trade picks, or some draft picks, and that'd be something interesting there. But I don't know. I actually kind of like Chris Paul just staying there. I think that team is set up for his play style, especially now that he's older. He's kind of that Jason Kidd style, aging, where he just he'll run the offense. It's not going to stick in his hands, but he knows how to pop a three here and there if he needs to. He knows how to get to the basket and get points. Health is a big thing with him though, whether he stays healthy. But you mentioned Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Yeah, he's a young up-and-comer. I mean, you kind of got to sit there and look at that trade from the Clippers to OKC, and he's just kind of like, well, I got traded for Paul George, so I should feel pretty good about myself,
And they didn't want to trade him either. They're like, we won't trade him. We won't trade him. We won't trade him. Okay, Kawhi wants us to trade him. We'll trade him. We'll get you Paul George. But they were really hesitant about getting rid of him.
Yeah, and you mentioned maybe if Chris Paul does get traded though, go to some contender, and you got LA out there still sitting out there, young talent in Kyle Kuzma, somebody that could be worth that couple $1 million contract if OKC is willing to hold on to the money and pay for it. I mean, you sit there and look at that and you're like, well, if LA trades Kuz for Chris Paul, you got half of the banana boat together. Will Carmelo come out of retirement and finish it off?
Let's just bring Carmelo and Wade into the best team of 2010 rolling in right now. Here's one trade I've been seeing a little bit of rumors about in some of the shows and reports, talking about trading Chris Paul to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, and then obviously filling in some parts around it. But basically, OKC would get a young stud in Ben Simmons. You could draft shooters, defenders, stuff that builds around him, because him, Embiid, Horford, I don't know how that's going to work. That's a big lineup, but no one can shoot. Chris Paul can shoot a little. He can run the offense. He won't have to be crowded in space, basically, with Embiid and Horford in the paint. He can distribute. He can shoot. He can also just get out of the way. Where Ben Simmons, if he doesn't have the ball and isn't driving, penetrating, and dishing, he's very limited. I mean, he can defend, but you have Chris Paul, Josh Richardson in the backcourt can both shoot. Then you'll have Embiid and Horford in the front line. That's a big front line. I think that bounces out a little bit nicer than when that Ben Simmons right now is too big. And then OKC, you get a young superstar again, who hopefully he'll stay there. We'll see if you want to even stay, but you can build around him and he can be set up to thrive there too.
Well, Ben Simmons did just sign that huge deal too, that huge extension. So he is locked into contract for another 6 years.
So is Paul George and all those other guys. So we've learned contracts are not contracts.
But it evens out money wise on that trade. I mean, cap space wise, you're not really losing. You're not really getting hit for anything. It's pretty much an even swap. So that's something to think about too. I mean, if they are going to trade him, it might be for somebody like a Ben Simmons who just signed a huge contract, and that cap space is going to be a pretty even swap. So that might be something to look for. And yeah, I do think he would fit in with the Sixers, but I don't know if he could handle the Embiid and all the antics that come with Embiid. Like, he had a hard enough time, obviously, with Harden, with Blake Griffin, and their outside of the court fun stuff, I guess you should call it. And don't get me wrong, Chris Paul is not immune to any of it by any means. I mean, he did lead the riot in Staples back into the Clippers locker room. So I mean, he's got himself a little chip on his shoulder. So I don't know. I think he would fit well with the Sixers, but could he mesh with the personalities? Is my big question for him.
And do the Sixers even bother wanting to get rid of Simmons? He is a young, I'm not going to call him a superstar, but he's a young, super talented player, even though he still has not learned how to shoot anything outside the paint. But at the same time, Embiid is awesome, but he's kind of flaky in some games, and there's always something with him. In the playoff game, oh, my knees are sore. Oh, my God, I'm sick. There's always something with him. If you have to pick between those two, do you pick him or Simmons? I mean, Embiid's arguably the best center in the league, or top 3. And Ben Simmons a top 10 point guard, but probably not top 5.
No.
So that's kind of a tough pick. Do you go health, or do you go potential when healthy?
Well, then that's true. But if you look at the team involved in the Thunder, I mean, they're kind of used to their point guard not being able to shoot threes.
They have adapted to it pretty well.
Yeah, so they were a playoff contender a Western Conference contender for the entire Westbrook tenure there, and the guy can shoot a 3-pointer to save his life for the most part.
Catches, he likes to shoot them too. He shot a lot of them, where Ben has shot 17 in 2 years. I mean,
yeah, it's I mean, at least with Ben, he knows what he's good at, and he's not going to just jack up random threes. They do have pieces in OKC. They got Roberson there to shoot threes. They do, they have young pieces to shoot on the outside, but they also got big guys down low that can help them out. So I think for Ben Simmons, that wouldn't be a bad trade for him, because it would split him from being known as the Embiid-Simmons duo and get him his chance to be in his limelight,
And I think he wouldn't have to stand around as much like he ends up doing in Philly. I think a lot of times he's out a lot of games where he scores 0, 2, 4 points and doesn't do much. No. But anyway, we're going back to the trade now. We talked about the CP3 side of it. Now we look at the Harden and the Westbrook side of it. Two of the last 2 MVPs, basically. 2 of the last 3. You have basically the triple-double machine, and the closest thing to him possible in James Harden. When I look at them, they are the exact same player that stuffed the stat sheets by any means possible. Harden's just a better shooter, where Russ is more athletically ridiculous. Neither one plays that great of defense, honestly. I mean, like they have their moments, but neither one's going to be known to lock anybody up. I think this could be an explosively fun, dynamic duo to watch, but I'm not too sure it's going to result. There's going to be a whole lot of change. There'll still be a 4th, 5th type seed if I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're definitely onto something with that. I will say with Harden, his triple doubles seem to come more in the flow of a game, whereas Russ, especially this last season, he was chasing stats. He wasn't out there just playing his game. He was chasing stats. He saw himself get a triple double the first year, and he's like, I want to do that again. I want to do something nobody else has done. Nobody ever believed that I can do. So I think that's interesting. Can Russ take a step back and be that facilitator he'll need to be for Harden? And on the flip side of that, can Harden not control the ball over 60% of the trips down the court?
You think he only controls the 60? I look at it as like 99. If he's on the court, he has the ball. Like, if they both had a basketball, the basically the competition would be who can dribble it till it goes flat first, and that's what it looks like. Honestly, I think this duo could work. The one weird part about it is in Mike D'Antoni's offense. I don't think it could work, because D'Antoni's offense is usually built around one guy dominating the ball, kicking it to finding open shooters. Russ is not your shooter, and James Harden, he's not a spot-up shooter by any means. Like, he's a shot creator, and Russ is a driver and basically a penetrate and dish kind of guy, which Harden does as well. Neither one of them's going to play off the ball very well, and I don't think you can. CP3 is a little easier to balance it out a little bit because he's a more distribute happy guard. He shoots the mid range. Russ, not as much. Like, he used to have that amazing mid range where he'd sprint head first and then pull up at the free throw line is money. But now I don't feel comfortable with him shooting anything outside of a layup or a dunk. So I think if they had a different offensive game plan, these two could work better. But with D'Antoni's, everybody stand on the perimeter and watch one guy dance the whole time. I think that's going to be where it kind of falls apart, honestly.
Well, honestly, I don't know. I think actually D'Antoni's system might be the best thing for him to work because it is based around speed too. I mean, it's all based around getting up and down the court, getting as many possessions as possible. And then it's like, I don't think you can have a better point guard to do that in Russell West than what Westbrook does. It's whether or not he is facilitator Russ or I'm going to jack up stupid shots because I'm Russ. I feel like that's what it's going to come down to is whether they get good Russ or bad Russ, and whether or not they get. Honestly, I think this could be the return of the defensive James Harden we saw in OKC. That guy that came in off the bench. That was just. Now he's not going to come in off the bench here, obviously, but we might see him actually try to play defense and actually, not demand the ball every time. I mean, don't get me wrong, he plays defense when he wants to, but we could actually see him play I won't say a full season, but maybe 60 games of defense compared to his current 20 games of defense. It's like we might be able to see that James Harden because he doesn't have to shoulder all the load offensively.
I'll believe it when I see it, but I definitely do think a different offense would be. And don't get me wrong, in transition, this team, when they're running, this will be a fun team with Westbrook running, Harden running. It'll be fun. I'm thinking in the half quarters where I can see them struggling when the game slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us. We talk about them as a duo. The NBA has basically turned from this big three, quote unquote, era of puke where teams stack the deck with 3 or 4 teams and just overload it. Now it's basically dynamic duos across the board and who can fill out the side parts a little bit better. And I kind of like it. I know I'd say it balances the league out a little bit more, but it makes it a little more intriguing. So that makes me wonder, who do you think are the top 5? Let's go top 10 NBA duos since every team has a duo now, basically. They're all across the board. If you had to rank them, we'll go 10 to 5 first. How would you go? Let's just do 1 through 10. Let's just do it all. Let's not
1 through 10. All right, we'll start at the beginning. Well, first of all, let me just say, this is the competitive balance that the NBA has been seeking for I don't know how many years.
Thank you, Kawhi the Giant Slayer, for bringing this back.
Yeah, who would have thought that the guy who demands a trade for one guy is bringing us back into a duo system, a la Pippen and Jordan. So, but no, I think number one duos. It's hard to say it's not going to be LeBron and Anthony Davis. You look at it on paper, you have the best player in the world right now. Well, let me phrase that. Should be the best player in the world right now in LeBron James, who has successfully for the last however many years, 14 years or whatever he is, he's been one of the best players on the court.
Best player in the league for the last 8 years, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have him, and you have Anthony Davis, who is honestly, in my opinion, probably the heir apparent to LeBron, taking the face of the NBA over. He doesn't do anything wrong, really. I mean, his worst thing wrong is he wore his Looney Tunes shirt last year after demanding a trade. Like, oh no, you want to leave New Orleans? Like, so I feel so not bad for you at all. Like, good job. But I think they're number one, in my opinion. Just what they can do on the court, defensively and offensively, especially if LeBron plays defense. That's a team that could be unstoppable. I mean, I'm not even looking at the pieces around them, but with the pieces around them, you include them, and they don't need much. I mean, LeBron's done a lot more with a whole lot less, and now he has Anthony Davis, Boogie, Kuz. I mean,
as a team, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. I question them at number 1 for the duos, but I'll let you finish first before I jump in.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just hard for me. I look at duos across the board, and I'm just like, in one season in a playoff game, I don't think there's a better duo that I would want in crunch time that wouldn't, after the play, complain to the other and say that they cost me the game. With that said, though, I think number 2 becomes the guy we just talked about, the Giant Slayer, Kawhi and Paul George. And, obviously people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, oh, wow, you didn't put KD and Kyrie in your top 2? Well, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But I definitely think Kawhi and Paul George are number 2.
And just for the sake of it, we'll say this just in general. We're not going to be like just for next year because we know KD's not playing next year.
Yeah.
Some of the guys are out for next year. So we're just going to say, like, on paper, who's the best duos. Like,
yeah, for the next 5 years. Like, for the next 5 years, if they stay together, this is kind of my...
If everyone's healthy, we'll just count it that way, basically.
Yeah, so, I mean, Kawhi and PG, we talked about this in the last podcast. offensively, pick your poison. I mean, they can both do it all, whether it's inside, outside, posting up, running the offense, being a facilitator. They can do it all. I mean, don't get me wrong, Kawhi definitely needs to tighten up his handles, but I don't know if I'd rather. I don't honestly. I think their problem is who do you pick in crunch time, and then the best part about that is if you're the Clippers, the team defending you in crunch time is gonna be like, crap, who do we guard in crunch time? Like, do we guard Paul? Do we guard Kawhi? Like,
I take my chances with Paul, as awesome as he is. Kawhi has shown to be that dude so far, especially in the playoffs, where Paul's like, well, you are really good, and you do have that Gatorade commercial where you call ball game, but let's see you call ball game in this game. But at the same time, you do not feel comfortable with that either.
yeah, no, it really is one of your pick your poisons. I mean, and again, their surrounding their surrounding pieces are even better set up to be successful long term. Number 3 is this is where I stick KD and Kyrie. I think offensively, I don't think there's a better offensive duo. Defensively, though, Kyrie has a lot of holes in his defensive game.
Except when he's playing Steph Curry in the finals in that 2016 year. Yeah. The only time we really saw it, too.
When he gets challenged by somebody and he's told that he needs to step up to do something. So basically when LeBron got in his face and said, hey, you need to step up, that was when he decided he'd actually play defense. So, is he able to self-motivate himself to be that good defensively all the time is the question. And KD, I mean, coming off of this level of an injury, we saw it with Kobe. It was just like he came off this Achilles injury and it was just game over, basically. I mean, it was a hollow man of Kobe that we had never seen Kobe look human before, and Kobe looked human after Achilles. So what does KD do?
And literally 10 minutes before that injury, Kobe is having arguably his best season. He's averaging like 28 on 46% shooting. He was shooting well from 3. Like, that was probably the best Kobe we'd seen, too, and that's maybe not the best, but one of the top 2 or 3 Kobe years before that injury, too. So exactly. That Achilles it's a career killer, unfortunately. Like, we've seen guys bounce back, like you said, and promise KD, he's so dang lengthy, being 7 feet tall and 110 pounds, that his legs and his feet, his knees, they take a beating. Like, we see those big guys, when their knees start to go, it's over. They have feet injuries. Bill Walton back in the day. I'm wondering, I know KD's not a traditional big man, but these lower extremity injuries might be catching up to him.
Yeah, no, those I can speak from my own success with lower leg injuries. It changes everything. I mean, it changes everything from just the way you jump to take a jump shot, to the way you land, to the way you take your first step on a move. Like, it's going to be different for him, especially, I mean, he's such an explosive type of player where it's like quick movements. I mean, he's lanky, so he has to have that quickness to get by people, but at the same time, he is lanky enough that he can just kind of reach over everybody with his 10-foot wingspan and just be like, oh, guys, by the way, I'm great. Like, so we'll see. I mean, I think he'll be great. I think he'll be good, but, like, as we saw with Gordon Hayward coming off the injury, it's kind of...
That first year, it's like, well, am I back?
Exactly. You second-guess yourself as an athlete, and that's something that these guys have never had to do before. So this is why I kind of stick them at 3. They're probably the most likely out of the so far of the guys I've named to possibly drop come once that both pieces are healthy. But yeah, as far as right now, that's where I'm going to keep them, because just offensively, they're so good when they're rolling. Pick your poison again. Do you want KD shooting over the top of you? Do you want KD driving past you? Do you want Kyrie, basically making you look like the biggest idiot that stepped on foot onto Rucker Park? Like, what do you want to look like right now? Like,
hello, 2 left ankles, basically.
Yeah, or hell, no ankles. Like, he will take you to the hospital and bring you back just to make you look bad. So I don't know. I think offensively they're so good, but defensively I have just a lot of questions. That's my 3rd. So fourth is where it gets weird, because this is where I start choosing between guys that are like CJ and Dame, or young guys like Luka and Kristaps. For me, this is where I start running into these issues where I'm like, oh boy, like, do I go youth or do I go Dame? And for me, 4 is, at this point in time, I got to give it to Dame and CJ, because Dame is just so good.
I will say, a little bit biased probably because I'm a big Damian Lillard fan. I think if he's not the best point guard in the league, he's top 2. I mean, I know he struggled in that playoff series against the Warriors, but it's tough when you have Clay and Draymond, the entire team's coming at you. When you pass off to anyone else, they struggle. I mean, CJ is awesome. He can get you buckets, but no one else on that team inspired any fear. I mean, Enes Kanter played his butt off in that series against the Nuggets, but he's not really inspiring any fear. I mean, I can't remember.
Al-Farouq Aminu?
Al-Farouq Aminu, yeah. He's
the most useless offensive player in the world.
His jump shot's not really scaring anybody. Rodney Hood came on and he had his moments, and that really made the difference in the Nugget series. So, I mean, they have a. I think this should be fun. Evan Turner wasn't doing a whole lot for him, so I think Damian Lillard's awesome, and I agree with you. Like, him alone basically keeps them up in that echelon. And plus, CJ's awesome. He's a fringe all-star himself.
Yeah,
So.
and CJ's getting better. I mean, he's only, 5 years in the league now?
Something like that, yeah.
It's less than his 7 years that usually you see a lot of guys start hitting their peak at. And, I mean, Dame's right there in the same area. It's about 7 years he's been in the league.
Came in with Anthony Davis.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're talking two guys that wow offensively from the guard position, but not just wow offensively, wow defensively. I don't know. As if you're a backcourt duo and you're going into Portland to play those two, you're kind of like, well, I'm chalking myself up to 10 points and 2 assists and no rebounds today. Like, I'll be lucky to get that.
I think if you make them work defensively, they do wear down. Like, you just can't let them. You can't let them take their pace into the game. You have to make them work from the get go, which Steph and Clay do a lot. 'Cause they run all over the place. I don't know how they never get tired. It's like playing 2K where you have to use the trigger to chase them when they're jogging, basically.
Yeah.
So I think teams like that can give them trouble defensively, but when they can just get in the groove offensively and ease into defense, I think they could be difficult. But when you go at them, we kind of see their defense take a dip really quickly. Like, they're either all the way up to, like you said, 10-2, where they're like, well, it's a shootout 30-35. Who's gonna get the 35?
And that's the thing though with them is maybe they might not have a great game defensively, but they seem to be one of between the two, one of them will always pick up the slack. It seems like, and when they don't, we saw it in the playoff series. Like, well, crap, they lost that game because they only averaged between the two of them 40 points for the losses. That sucks. But when those two are rolling, it is, I think, hands down, they're the best backcourt duo at this point in time. But I mean, that's because we haven't seen Harden and Russ together yet. But as far as what we've seen on paper, when they're at the top of their game, I feel like they're the best because they do play defense.
I think when you get that Game 6 Clay, basically, with Steph Curry not in the finals, basically, I think they're a little bit better just because Clay is the best defensive player out of all of them, and I think offensively it's a wash between all four of them. But I'm a big fan of Dame and CJ too, and I think they get kind of a bad rap because of losing to the Warriors. Everybody besides Kawhi and LeBron lose to the Warriors. Yeah. There's nothing really wrong with it. I know Dame struggled mightily. He had some terrible numbers. One game he had 1 field goal, but he's a small guy going up against that team. It's tough to score. They play defense. Dame's still a top 2 or 3 point guard in the league. He should have been first team All-NBA this year. Steph missed too many games. Dame carried a big load this year. Dame should have been first team All-NBA for the last 2 years. He should have got it this year. But I agree with you. That duo is fantastic.
Yeah, and like I said about, with KD and Kyrie, as far as movement-wise, I think on this list, I feel like these two have the most upside to them just because they're still building on what they already have. And if they can keep themselves together with a supporting cast that they are building in Portland right now, that seems just like, if you look at it on paper, you're just like, wow, this is a sneaky super team. Like, this team can actually do something in the playoffs.
If they get Whiteside, that wants to upgrade his 2K rating, Whiteside, from 2015 before we got paid. All those things you said about their defense, you can probably watch them. Because even if they're struggling getting into it, that guy protecting the rim, plus Nurkic when he comes back. Yeah. Nurkic, plus the other parts they have, Rodney Hood bringing him back, that's a nice pickup.
And you talk about Nurkic, that he's coming off a big injury, but he now has Hassan he can rely on for defense. So that team just on paper, they seem to every player that they could place on a lineup seems to cover another one's deficit.
And he kind of got injured like it was in that March-ish area, so it was kind of late in the season. But it wasn't in the playoffs, so I think he can say he comes back in March. Just say it's a year injury. I know it looked way worse, and you can't count him. I think for the second round of the playoffs, he can be back to 80 to 90% of what he was before the injury. Back, okay, I can contribute heavily. I can help us win a series.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So CJ and Dame in my 4th spot, and I mentioned Luka and Kristaps, but I'll get to them in a second. You mentioned Clay and Steph. I'll get to them in a second as well. But I mean, we just talked about it, started off to bring the episode in. Russ and James, I have to put them at 5. I know we haven't seen them in a while, but we have seen a version of them in their youth. And that version of them in the youth was, there was KD with them. But those two, when they were on the court by themselves, were still must-see TV. I mean, you're talking old man game Harden, and you're talking the explosive Westbrook. That is just so fun to watch. And, Westbrook's kind of came into that same region lately where defensively you're just kind of like, what are you doing, guy? Like, where's that great defense we used to see?
Steal or bust, basically. It's like, I'll get a steal or I'm giving up a bucket.
Exactly. It's, so if he can turn around defensively and James can start playing defense again, and if they turn out to mesh well on offense, they're right now, due to Clay's injury, the second best duo in backcourt right now. Notice I said due to Clay's injury. Like I said, I'll get to that in a second. But I just think Russ and James have a lot they need to prove, but they've already proven so much with what they did previously that this could be a fun duo to watch for a long time coming.
They have a little bit of that chemistry already built. Granted, it's been a long time, but like pretty much everyone we've mentioned, which I'm going to get to here when I do my top 5 before we continue going, they have a little bit of that built-in chemistry. A lot of these other teams, they're going at it right now. This is their first time together, so I think that could help smooth the edges a little bit. So maybe instead of starting 9-9 like the big three Heat did, a lot of teams kind of struggle. They could probably come out of the gate with like a 10-3 type record. So
yeah,
that's a good point with them. Before we get on to the rest of your top 10, I'm going to jump with my top 5 so they're not too far spaced.
Yeah, no, that's probably the best idea.
So for number 1, I like everything you said about LeBron and Anthony Davis. I agree with everything you said except I don't know how they're going to mesh. I don't trust LeBron's jump shot consistently. He's very streaky. When he's on, like the Miami LeBron, it's number 6 LeBron. I was hoping he'd wear number 6 this year and we'd get that LeBron again. But thanks to Nike contracts, he has to wear 23 for one more year, it looks like. So I love everything you said about them. Offensively, probably the best duo, if not the second best. But neither one's really a shooter. They both like to attack the lane. LeBron's defense, we'll see what he does. I mean, we'll see. Playmaking, though, probably the best playmaker he's still the best point guard in basketball, even though he doesn't play point guard. If he stays at just point guard and averages like 22, 12, and 8, best point guard. Like, he's everything that we want Ben Simmons to be and some. Like, that's where I think he's. So I have them at number 2. I know I started at number 2. That's kind of odd, but like, you mentioned them as your number 1, and for me, number 1, I'm still going with Kawhi and Paul George. Just because they both, you're going to get lockdown defense in a perimeter-oriented game, like let's say they go against, let's just say Dame and CJ. There's not really a 3 on that team that worries you a lot, so you could put Patrick Beverley on the 3, then put Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on Dame and CJ. It's like, oh, geez, not only are we facing the 2 best perimeter defenders, they are also 5 inches taller than us, if not more, and they can give us the business offensively. I think that's the type of diversity they bring. Neither one's coming off an injury. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's coming off one of the best finals runs we've seen since Dirk Nowitzki, arguably. And Paul George, that shoulder, a little weary, but he was still playing in that playoff series, and he did pretty well. I mean, like, those games where Russ was shooting 10 of 31, Paul George was helping keep him in them. He's, like that shot Dame hit, Paul George is right there. Like, I mean, you can't ask for better defense. That's some 2K BS, basically, that he pulled off on that one. So you can't blame PG for that one. He said it's a bad shot. I wouldn't call it a bad shot, but it's a tough shot, and he should have been Defensive Player of the Year. So you have 2 top. If Kawhi plays more games, he's an MVP candidate too. He's top 3. Yeah. So you have those 2. So I'm going Kawhi number 1 and LeBron and Anthony number 2.
I like that. I will say this about Paul George, that the reason why I didn't. This is kind of, you talked about the Dame series, and yeah, his shoulder was a little messed up, but Dame showed him his tail in that series. Like when it came down to it,
no one was stopping Dame.
Dame was playing out of his mind. So. And that's just one guard. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's probably the best guard in the West, and especially in the league. But Paul George is supposed to be one of the best defenders in the league. And my only question that comes up with those 2 at the top is whether they can, because they're so identical defensively, and I mean, for that matter, their offensive game is so identical. Is it just too much of the same thing?
And that's very possible. Like it's very possible. That's what we were talking about. Like all these teams, it depends how they mesh. I'm just thinking like, let's say I'm coaching the team and I could pick a duo. They're gonna be the one I pick for the way I'd like to coach them.
No doubt.
And picking Anthony Davis and LeBron is nowhere near wrong. I mean, it's 1A and 1B really.
No, it's honestly the only reason I lean more towards LeBron and AD is you saw what they did in the Olympics together with LeBron playing point Bron. I mean, that was. AD was flying out of his mind. He got player of the tournament, and in the FIBA tournament and the Olympics. So it's like, I don't know. I know he's not the same Anthony Davis, but I don't know. I feel like LeBron's more likely to be point Bron this season and do that type of stuff. So that's why I just feel, I don't know. I can't choose. I can't say like you're wrong either. I'm just like, for me, this is why I chose that side compared to what the route you went.
I feel like it's pretty unanimous. Those are the top two duos right now on paper. I think everyone agrees with that. I mean, it's unfortunately if anyone was tuning here for something different, I apologize. So far, it's been the exact same. This is where mine gets a little bit different, I promise. So if you're still tuning in, this is where things change a little bit. For me, number 3, this is a very unorthodox pick, and I kind of hate it because I don't really like one of these guys because his face when he plays annoys me. But I'm putting Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic number 3.
Okay.
Jamal Murray is awesome. He stepped up his game big time, but his face when he plays, he has a very arrogant looking face. I hate to say that because he seems like a nice guy. But anyway, he averaged 22 points a game in the postseason. Jokic is the best passing big man since who knows how long. Probably as good, if not better than Tim Duncan.
He might be the best all-around big man, not named Anthony Davis.
He might even be better as a big man than Anthony Davis. He can't stretch the floor quite as well, but down on the block, that'll be fun. I mean, I know DeMarcus took it to him a few times with the Warriors, and he's not a defender by any means. Jokic is not scaring you, but he shoots floaters like a prime CP3. He can hit three-point shots kind of like better than Russell Westbrook, realistically.
Yeah.
He can get you 12 rebounds easily. He's a thick guy. Like, you could kind of see sometimes he doesn't move very well. I'd like him to move a little bit better. But they also have the one thing we talked about, Dame and CJ. They have chemistry together. They've played years together. Jamal Murray could play off the ball, so Jokic could play point center freakishly.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray is practically a two-guard with the way he scores. They both have a clutch factor about them, too. Like, Jamal Murray hitting all those free throws in those playoff series down the stretch. I think it was against Portland. He hit, like, 8 free throws in the fourth quarter, 8 for 8 to seal it.
Yeah.
Jokic, good luck stopping him consistent. I mean, he finished 4th in MVP voting with 12 triple-doubles as a giant 7-foot center.
In the era of quick and fast people, not big centers, yeah.
Exactly, and they have a lot of good parts around him, and he makes them better. He has that LeBron factor. As a center, he makes people better. And this is a little projecting, too. Like, I mean, I know we kind of talked about just next year. I think they're going to be better next year, too. They're one of those teams that stayed together and stayed intact and didn't change. So I'm putting them at 3 kind of recklessly.
Yeah, I will say that my only problem with them, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, is Gary Harris is sitting there to me, he's just so much a part of that team.
We're doing
as what
triplets.
they do offensively. Like, yeah, if we're doing triplets, they're probably like right there in the top.
They're probably 2.
Two or 1, you know, like pick your poison. And so that's for me. I feel like Gary Harris can. The reason I don't have him so highly ranked is because you have to kind of put Gary Harris there because you.
I love Gary's game.
You can't. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I see more Gary Harris and Jokic. I feel like Jokic is the centerpiece on that, where Jamal Murray and Gary Harris are playing off of him equally as well. But each game would just decide something different, you know?
From what I saw in Jamal Murray in the playoffs, I thought he established himself as that number 2 guy. I think they were pretty even during the regular season. But in the playoffs, especially against the Spurs, Jamal Murray took over when needed. Gary Harris is awesome. Not even going to say anything to diminish him. It's pick your poison, those two.
Yeah, that's the only reason I didn't have him there. It's just I just have that hard time separating
to each their own.
Murray and Harris.
And at number 4, I'm going to put KD and Kyrie. All the exact same reasons. If they're healthy and KD didn't have the injury, they're probably number 3 just because they're going to get buckets on anybody.
Okay.
KD has shown the ability to help on defense really well. Maybe not defend so much himself unless he's guarding a smaller guy. Like, I don't see him shutting down the likes of Kawhi or anything like that, but he'll get you some help defense blocks. You can't guard him. Kyrie, if you put your best defender on him, Kevin's going to eat no matter what. So I have them at number 4. If KD's 80% of what he is before, this is basically where he'll be. If he starts to fall because of the injury, they might drop a little bit. Number 5, I have Dame and CJ. The same reasons. Dame's, in my opinion, the best point guard in the league. CJ, on most teams, if he was playing 6-man, he'd be the best 6-man in the league. He'd basically be Lou Williams. But since he's starting, he's still really good. I think he's not going to be an all-star, unfortunately, in the West just because he's playing alongside Dame. He's averaging 20 points, but he's not averaging 26, 25. And Dame's giving you the 7 assists. CJ's going to give you maybe 3 or so. Like, he's fantastic. If he's in the East, he's an all-star easily because they don't have the guard depth. He's just basically there's tier 1 with Dame. CJ's like in that lower end with tier 2. Like, he's like
the top end of the tier 2, bottom end of tier 1.
He's very D'Angelo Russell. Like, I think just playing the 2 guard and a little bit cleaner offensively just because his mid-range shot if you give him a shot, he'll take it and he'll make it. So I have them at 5 and they have the chemistry as well. Like, that's how I look at them. Basically everything we already talked about it with Dame and CJ. I just have them 1 spot lower because I hold Jokic and Murray in high regard with what they can do and what they have done. And having a point guard and a center, that's a duo that's through the test of time has been difficult to deal with. So So we'll let you finish your top 10 now. We'll go. Who do you have at number 6?
So number 6, I noticed you kind of left him out of your top 5 as well, and for me, I did as well because it's just they're kind of in the same boat where we talked about Jamal and Jokic. is Clay and Steph to me.
Do you do Clay
Is
and
it
Steph?
Clay and Steph or Draymond and Clay or Draymond and Steph? Like,
or D'Angelo Russell and Steph? Or
yeah, like
D'Angelo?
it's such a hard mix. But for me, I look at that team, and if they're all healthy, I mean, your top two names on that board is going to be Clay and it's going to be Steph. And notice I put Clay first for a reason. I think that team without Clay is a hollow shell of itself than if you put anybody else there. I just think Clay is such a component for what they do. You talk about how he just runs in circles around people. He sets picks. Plays defense. I mean, as a two guard, when healthy, I think he's your number 1-2 guard next to maybe Kawhi. Or it depends if you put Kawhi as a two or a small forward. I mean, in today's game who do you choose where? To me, he's 1A, 1B. I mean, it's so hard. He's so good defensively. You got Steph there, so good offensively. And just Draymond is so good average across the board. He's not good offensively, though. And that's why I can't put him in a top duo with anybody because he's just...
He's good at sprinting downhill with the ball and sometimes passing, but sometimes he dribbles the ball off his foot, like against the Rockets 2 years ago. He's too head down bulldozer. He's like a big Russ with a little, not quite as athletic, unfortunately.
Kind of like how honestly Kawhi was when he was younger. Kawhi, in my opinion, still needs to tighten his handle, but he's definitely gotten a lot better. Draymond needs to do the same thing. But yeah, no. So that's why like first six for me is definitely Clay and Steph when healthy. Obviously, we're just talking about best duos on paper, so I'm able to put this one here and not feel bad about it because we don't know how he's going to come off of a major knee surgery, and that's going to be a big deal. And honestly, we won't know for another year and a half until the 2020-2021 season. So whether he shows up in the playoffs this season or not is a whole different story, whether they even make the playoffs. So, I mean, yeah, for me, there's six because I can't put them higher because there's the Draymond factor.
I wanted to put them higher, too. The only reason is it D'Angelo Russell right now? Do you put him as part of that duo too? That's the kind of the thing. Like they're pretty much dead even with Dame and Clay, in my opinion, or Dame and CJ. I have them basically dead even. What some do, it's like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I have them at 6. But I mean, it's hard to pick against them, but at the same time, it's hard to pick them. If that makes sense. Like it's just everything about it just tells you probably shouldn't put him up here, but then everything on paper says. You're an idiot if you don't put him up here.
And one thing about them, too, is the same thing with Dame and CJ, where I was like, as awesome as they are, they're both in the backcourt. Like, a lot of these duos, you look at our top list, AD and LeBron, one plays more on the perimeter, should be a point guard, one is a power forward / center. Paul George and Kawhi, a 2 and a 3, a 3 and a 4, a 1 and a 3, a little more position versatility. KD and Kyrie, a small forward / power forward / could probably be your center if you absolutely needed to. And then a guard, Jokic and Jamal Murray, what I said about a point guard and center. There's a little more versatility position-wise. I know it's positionless basketball, but it still kind of matters.
Positionless basketball, my butt.
And then you look at Steph and Clay. They're both in the backcourt. Steph's a smaller guy. Same with Dame and CJ. I mean, CJ's pretty small for a shooting guard. They're both smaller guys. They're both backcourt. So you can have a great backcourt, but if your front court's not complimenting, it could hurt. Where these guys, where the other duos I have ahead of them, can kind of balance it out a little bit better.
Yeah. So that's my 6. Number 7, you talk about small guy, big guy. This is kind of, don't get me wrong, Luka's not small by any means, but this is definitely where I put Luka and Kristaps.
So you're saying big guy, huge guys.
Yeah. Monster of a man versus a monster of a guard. So yeah, Luka, I don't know. Luka's just so smooth offensively. He's only, 20 now? 19 still? 20?
19, 20, yeah.
Something like that. And
can he have a beer? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know if he can even drink a beer yet legally in the U.S., but he's fine overseas. But no, you just look at him, what he can do. He's kind of like Kawhi in that matter, where that late game shot, he's that dude I want taking that shot. Let's be honest.
I feel pretty comfortable with him pulling that shot with 5 seconds left and throwing the ball to him.
Yeah, like he does. It doesn't matter the angle he has to get the ball off. He can get it off. He has vision, a la Steve Nash, in my opinion. Like his passing ability is just so polished for a young kid.
He has the gift of passing, kind of like we talk about. LeBron's been a natural point guard. I think Luka's gonna average 23 for his whole career too. He scores so smoothly. Plus he can pass. He's gonna have LeBron's stat line of like 25, 7, and 7 his whole career.
He's such a mismatch. I mean, what we talked about, we kind of embellished a little bit with saying he was 6'10", but he's 6'7", 6'8". Like, come on, he's still a monster of a man. He's Magic Johnson playing point, but he has a better offensive game than Magic did.
And a little shorter in a different era, but still.
Yeah,
exactly.
like he is just so good offensively. And granted, we haven't seen Kristaps for almost a year and a half, 2 years. His knee injury took some time. I think he's finally in a place now where we're going to see the unicorn come back out again. We're going to see the full Kristaps we saw before. I don't think he'll be as good as he once was, but even where he's going to be is still going to be better than a lot of NBA players. He's still going to be a top 15, top 20 NBA player now. And so I feel like those two together, it's going to be fun to watch because Kristaps can spread the floor. He can spread the floor. He can take you off the dribble. He can do it if you need him to. It's impressive for such a tall, lanky man that's 7 foot tall that he can do what he can.
And he can cook in the post if you need to. He's not necessarily a post scorer, but he can pick on some guys if he absolutely has to.
Unlike Karl Anthony Towns, who has a big body but doesn't play down low, Kristaps is like, I'm tall, but I might be skinny, but you know what? I'll take you off any post move in the world. Drop step, hook shot, you name it, he'll do it. So that's my 7th spot. I mean, again, it's hard to pick against some of these more established duos, but I just feel like what they can do and what they've done individually, if you can combine that together into what they can do together, I feel like they just have such a great upside. And then, again, in tall point guard, huge center, I got Ben Simmons and Embiid right now at number 8. This thing run into the same issue, though, we talked about with having 2 guards. The spacing is just not really there.
What is the spacing you speak of? Your center is your 3-point shooter.
Their spacing is the paint. Once it's on one block, once it's on the other block, and they pass it back and forth, basically, and say good luck to everybody else. But it's, honestly, it's so fun to watch. Whether, if you're a fan of the new NBA and all these 3-point shots, you're going to hate this choice. But for all of us NBA purists, I won't say purists because I'm far thing from a purist, but all of us that just enjoy watching the game of basketball for what it is, they're just so fun to watch because you don't know what they're going to do next. I mean, they only play 6 feet apart from each other in the paint, but yet you get all sorts of crazy picks and rolls and moves that you just don't expect to come from either one of them. And, I mean, Embiid, for only playing basketball for less than 10 years now, has been absolutely amazing for his skill level right now. If you told me he picked up a basketball 10 years ago and I didn't know better, I'd be like, there's no way. It's impossible to believe. And Ben Simmons looks all of the future LeBron type of player that he's been claimed to be forever. Minus a jump shot.
Yeah, and a free throw, too. Granted, LeBron's not exactly a staple for free throw consistency anymore, but at least for most of his career, you could count on him for like 78 to 83% usually. Yeah. But since then, it's kind of turned into some Shaq-ting territory. But
oh, yeah, he's definitely Shaq on the free throw line and LeBron on the floor, though, it seems like. So, I don't know. I think that's although I think Shaq might have a beat on 3-point shots. So
yeah, he has made one in his career at least.
Yeah, so, I mean, Ben maybe work on that a little bit. But then again, he knows his game. We talk about it off the jump. Like, the one thing with Ben Simmons is he knows what he does well, and he doesn't try to do anything outside of that.
For better and for worse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the whole, to bring a football player into it, it's, do you like Alex Smith to just do what he does, or do you want Patty to just go crazy? Like, it's that, probably a bad example, but considering what Patty just did. But you get what I'm saying. Like, he's just so consistent in what he does that you can't really go wrong with it, but at the same time, you want more.
I choose Patty, but anyway, continue.
Yeah. So that's my 7 pick. 8 is, it's a weird one. So I'm actually putting a lot in this boat for the future. But just based off injury and then coming back, Indiana, though. Victor Oladipo and Miles Turner. I got a lot riding on that boat because that is a interesting duo, to say the least.
Victor Oladipo is fantastic when healthy. He is a stud when he's 100%. And Miles Turner came into his own last year after Oladipo went down. They still held strong at that 3-4 seed area. I mean, part of that's Miles Turner.
Yeah, exactly. Miles Turner, I mean, he was a godsend for a team that lost their number one overall, like their number one player in Victor Oladipo. And let me just say, I've been a fan of Oladipo since he was in Indiana. I don't know what it is with these guys coming out of Indiana that I'm just a fan of watching them play, but they know how to teach him some Hoosier basketball and make him in the pros.
He's a hardworking guy. He's a no-nonsense guy. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like, he attacks the basket like a young Wade. He plays defense. He can shoot. And he can sing, too. I mean, how can you not like a guy who can sing like that?
And honestly, that's what he kind of reminds me of, is that Dwayne Wade type of player. And kind of that personality, too, where it's just like, on the court, that's your worst enemy. But you know what? After the game, he's cool with everybody. Like, he's going to want to dunk on you and make you look like a fool on the court, but afterwards he'll dab you up, he'll trade jerseys with you, he'll ask about the kids,
And he can kind of play that point guard as a two guard if you need to. That's
Yeah.
like I love Oladipo. I'm with you on that one. I have them ranked differently, but fully agree with you on everything you just said about Oladipo.
Yeah, no, and the reason why Miles Turner, I know he has some work to do, but he reminds me of a kind of that young AD style offensive game.
Very, very versatile. Can shoot a little bit. Can take you off the post. Very lengthy. Almost too lengthy, honestly, for his own good.
Yeah, honestly he probably needs to get his shot needs a little refining on it. Obviously, it's not as consistent as you'd want it to be, but he's a big man that isn't afraid to play in the paint, and that's when I get to my next choice is why I have them ranked so low. It's because the big guy doesn't like to play in the paint. But anyway, so yeah, that's my 8. Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner. I'm riding for you guys. I want them to break a top 5, but it's going to be a lot of work for them. And it depends on, obviously, how Oladipo comes back from this injury. So I might look like an absolute fool because Oladipo comes back a shell of a man. But then again, I might look like a great man, great wise Prometheus, like picking
All right, Kelsadamas.
Yeah, come on. I'm just giving myself 2 sides here. Or I'll just look like I normally do. Which is probably most likely. So anyways, that's my the 7? 8? That's 8. Yeah. So number 9 though, and this one pisses me off beyond belief. We saw him in live in person, and I complained about him the whole game when we watched Dwayne Wade's retirement game in Minnesota. That's Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. Probably the biggest disappointing duo of everybody, but they are talent-wise. They can be a top 10 duo on their night.
I'm with you with Cap, but Andrew Wiggins, I haven't seen it. He doesn't really defend anymore. When he attacks the paint, it's pretty lazy. He still can't shoot. I love his talent, and on paper I agree with you, but I can't put Andrew Wiggins and top 10 in the same sentence. I can't do it.
It hurts a lot of it actually. But no, for me it's Cat. Cat's my disappointment. You look at a guy, he is 6'10", 6'11",
7'1",
like over 7'3" wingspan. The dude should be bossing the paint. Instead, he looks like a little ballerina trying to take any tiny individual off. And Taj Gibson was a better big man than him, and Taj Gibson is a twig of a man. Like, I just don't get it. Karl Anthony Towns, I don't understand. I loved you coming out of college. I wanted to see what you could do in the pros, and you have done nothing but disappoint me. Just, you make Shaq look like an absolute genius for saying you wouldn't be an NBA player. Because right now, you aren't playing like what you should. Like, you should, in every night, he should have 25 plus. He should have 10 rebounds. He should be Kevin Love in the paint. But he's just like, no. I'm going to shoot threes. I'm going to take people off the dribble. It's just not his game. And I know he's probably pressing because he doesn't have the same offensive output that Wiggins was giving him. But you look at Andrew Wiggins, and the reason I say this is the most disappointing duo is because both sides of it is disappointing. It's just like Wiggins on his night, he is a B-level Jimmy Butler on his night. He can get you 20, he can get you 10 boards, and he'll get you a lot of stops on defense. But when it's not his night,
where's he at?
Oh my goodness! And this is kind of a reach at 9 for me for a top 10 duos. But when I just look at it, they have all the talent on paper, and they have a lot of time to build more talent. And they do have chemistry together. The two do have really good chemistry together. It's just a matter of putting it all from the practice court to the game. And God forsaken, I want to see Cat down low. I am trying so hard to not just lose my mind on this one. But Cat to me is just, he just has all the abilities to be the greatest big man in the league. He should be up there with the Jokic and the Davis conversation. Instead, it's Jokic, Davis, Nurkic, a whole bunch of guys, Dwight Howard, Karl Anthony Towns.
I love Cat's game when he's basically free throw line in, because I don't mind him shooting a little mid-range turnaround when he does play down there. But when we saw him bang down low, he still got you 20 and 10, even though he spent a lot of time out of there. I want to see him get you he can get you 28 and 12 to 15. And I want to see the Karl Anthony Towns that play defense at Kentucky.
Yeah.
He still does play a little defense, but he's not a guy that really inspires fear going with paint. We saw Wade. Granted, Wade's it's probably not the best example because no one's scaring him out of the paint, especially after he destroyed Anderson Varejão's soul with that one dunk way back. he went started 7 of 7. So I mean, people don't really fear going into the paint on him like I thought they would. But I get what you're saying. Like it'd be nice to see him down on the block a little more often and not shooting threes or trying to take people off the dribble. Really.
Yeah, he needs to play more like a cougar and not like a house cat.
All right, we're gonna
So
use that's a good
that's
way
my
to
number
just,
9.
Let's look at number 10. How do you
number
round
10
this out?
So number 10, you have a lot of choices down here. You got DeMar, LaMarcus in San Antonio. You got the young duo in Sacramento. As a Kings fan, you'd think I might pick this one in Bagley and Fox or Buddy and Fox, but I'm not. You got Memphis with Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant coming up, so that'd be interesting, but I'm not picking that one. I'm not picking Trae Young and John Collins. I talked about that one. But no, instead, I'm going a little bit off the cuff. I'm going to Utah. I'm actually completely leaving out Jamal Murray and Jokic because I still can't figure out where Gary Harris fits into that triangle. And I feel like it has to be a triangle to work and not just a straight line for that team. So for me, I go to Utah, and I go to the newly formed duo of Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell has shown to be so good so early. And Mike Conley, we don't know where he's been this last 2 seasons, but he still has moments of just like, oh, by the way, I remember how to play offense. Like, here's a couple shots. But, I mean, the one thing that's never been in question is his defense, his grit, and his passing ability. Like, the dude will do anything. He'll put his body on the line for you. He'll get you some great looks. But whether or not he actually knocks down his looks is a different question. But he'll and he can shut down the opposing point guard. And so that's going to take a lot of pressure off Donovan Mitchell. And like I said, he's been so good so young, so early. It's exciting to see what he can do going forward with somebody like Mike Conley with him. I think on paper they can be a top 10 duo be on a team that's already made the playoffs with Ricky freaking Rubio at point guard. Like, at least Conley can knock down 1 3 a game. Rubio is like, I'm wide open. Oh wait, that's right, I'm wide open. Crap, let me pass this off. Like, I mean, I could honestly, you probably put Gobert and Donovan Mitchell here as a duo, but I just think overall offensive defensive consider is what I'm looking at for duos, and I just think Gobert doesn't have enough offensive game to put him as a duo with Mitchell, because it is Donovan Mitchell's team, and I think in this case it's Michael Conley's chance to be that second duo.
Everything you said about Gary Harris, Jokic, and Jamal is how I feel about this one with Gobert, because he's the Defense Player of the Year, multi-time Defense Player of the Year. He'll still get you 15 and 10. He's averaging 11 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. He's almost too good to not include it. And the thing with them is Mike Conley is just leaving his prime, where Mitchell is just starting to enter it. I feel like they just missed each other by a couple of years. Fantastic. That team is a starting 5, top 5, 6 team in the West, I think. You throw in Joe Ingles when you talk about classic old man game, perfect example. Gobert and Conley, as a whole unit, they're fantastic. I think that's one of the best teams in the West. So I'm going to come in at number 6 with mine. Everything you said about Clay and Steph is kind of similar. If you say I can't use Clay and you throw in D'Angelo Russell and Steph, they drop farther. If you tell me I have to throw in Draymond, it drops pretty much out of the top 10, unfortunately. But Steph Clay, number 6, the exact same thing as Damian Lillard. I'm simply siding a little bit with Dame and CJ just by a smidge, because I think Dame's a little bit better than Steph. Not by much, but just a little bit. And I think it's just a wash all around. Clay's the best defense player out of all of them. Dame's the best offensive player. Steph's probably the best at dribble handling the ball. I think CJ's probably got a more diverse set of shots. The way he shoots a mid-range, he doesn't just shoot threes or layups where everyone else kind of tends to do. Steph has some good floaters and that little one-handed flick shot that he does. I
think CJ might be the best passer out of the group too. So they each take kind of their own.
We'll disagree on that one, but I know what you're getting at. At the same time, it's just a wash. They're the 2 best backcourts in the game right now, in my opinion. 2 of the top 6 or 7 of all time, depending on how you want to look at it. It kind of varies in that regard. It just depends on your choice. Number 7, this one's a little more unorthodox, but I'm putting Oladipo and Miles Turner up a little bit higher than you had them. I love Oladipo. If he comes back healthy, fantastic. Miles Turner, he's fantastic. He can get you whatever you need. He's awesome. I kind of like him there. Number 8. This one's kind of weird because it's not really a duo. It's one guy who's fantastic and another guy who had a breakout season in Giannis and Chris Middleton. Giannis is the second best player in the world to me. Kawhi is the best. Giannis is the second best. Next year, I think Giannis, the way he gets better every year, and as soon as that series is over, he doesn't say, oh, man, it hurts. He says, I'm going to be better next year.
Yeah.
He already put on, like, what was it, 8 pounds of muscle. And was like, oh, I can get into lane and dunk on everybody now. Now he's like, okay, I can still do that, but now I'm going to add a decent outside shot. So if they don't guard me out here, I can make 33% of my threes, 34%. And if I can make a mid-range, I'm going to add a free throw line extended jump shot to my game. And even if he doesn't do that, he's already could shoot better than guys like Ben Simmons and other guys who can't shoot.
Yeah, sure.
He is 6'11" and dunking flat-footed basically. And Chris Middleton with 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, or whatever it was in this breakout season. Plus they got the shooters around him. I can't leave them off here. I'm putting them at 8. Giannis is also probably, besides Paul George and Kawhi, he's probably the third best perimeter defender. He's probably a top 10 paint defender if you include that too.
I'd even give him top 5 overall defender. Period.
I think he's the third best defender in the league, maybe fourth depending on how you rank Gobert. Just kind of depends on what you do with him there.
Yeah, but I will say the one problem I have with that Middleton to me. Can Middleton reproduce his success? If he can reproduce his success, I look like an idiot for not putting him up there, and you look like a genius. And so that was my only hesitation with putting them up there is he a good enough supporting player to be a duo, or is he just a supporting act? Was my biggest question with that duo. And so, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I just hope he can reproduce his success long term, because I do love Giannis. I do want to see Giannis succeed and become the greatest player in the NBA.
This also has a feel to it, like they used to say it about LeBron, like, oh, just put anyone next to him and they're a top notch duo. So I think he has that kind of feel to him too. And so I'm gonna put them at 8. Might seem a little bit low considering he's the MVP, but I'm gonna put them at 8. Number 9, I'm putting LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. Best 2 in the mid-range game in the NBA. I mean, gosh, they are money when they are hitting. DeMar can still fly. They're unfortunately probably the second oldest duo that we've mentioned. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
I think they might honestly be the oldest.
I mean, they combine, they can average over 40, average 15 rebounds, get their assists. They can play off each other pretty well. Probably not the best duo, but I think they're consistent. There's a lot less downside for them.
They were a hard one for me to leave out of the top 10, just because of everything they've done in their careers. I was just looking at it more as like, well, crap, they're playing in San Antonio. Like, don't get me wrong, LaMarcus is still going to get his, but DeMar seems to still be struggling with the pop system.
I think he was still struggling leaving Toronto and seeing them. I'm hoping this lights a fire in him. He's like, okay, they think they can win without me. Watch me average 29 to 30. I thought he could be the leading scorer in the NBA this last season just in the pop system. Didn't quite work out, but I think there's still plenty of time for it to come to fruition.
Yeah, because Pop does love his mid-range shots.
Manu
and Tony lived on that shot, and so did Tim Duncan too. So,
and he surrounds them with shooters like Patty Mills. So I think there will be spacing.
Patty Mills.
And then number 10, I'm leaving off some of the ones you left off, like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, pure talent, fantastic. Embiid's an all-NBA player, an all-defensive type player. Ben Simmons, he can get you triple-doubles out the you-know-what. He can distribute the ball. They don't fit together. I can't make it work. They just can't. I mean, it's tough. I can't do it. So at number 10, I'm going to put an interesting duo here. It's probably not one that you'd mostly think about, but I'm going to put Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum. Because there's a bunch of other guys. I want to put Gordon Hayward here because I think Gordon Hayward has potential to be the leading scorer on that team. I want to put Jaylen Brown here because he's probably one of the better defensive guys, even though his offensive game, I think, kind of is based on everyone else creating for him. Kemba Walker has the best step back in the league, and he could still drop 20. He's 88% of Kyrie Irving, basically. He's a little shorter, a little bit better of a passing type guard who's still a shoot first point guard who's going to give you 26 points a game. And Jason Tatum, I'm saying we get rookie playoff Tatum as opposed to last year's Tatum. I'm going to put them at 10. With the coaching you have, Tatum can score at all levels. Kemba can score at all levels. I think they're excited to have Kemba, and Kemba's excited to be there. I don't think there'll be as much disconnect like there was this last year. I think they're going to both average over 22 points a game this year, and I think Kemba will give you 5 to 6 assists with it.
And like we talked about in one of the other podcasts, is I definitely think Kemba is the point guard for Brad Stevens' system. As much as we all love Kyrie and we all see how good he can be, I just don't think Kyrie was a Brad Stevens point guard. And I think Kemba can be that point guard that makes Brad Stevens' career in the NBA look amazing. And I think on the flip side of that, Brad Stevens can make Kemba look 10 times better than he already does. And he's already an all-star.
I think they looked at it like, oh, look what he did with Isaiah Thomas. What imagine we could do with Kyrie? I don't think their personalities, their play styles quite match. They're both score first guys, 100%. They're both, I'm going to get buckets and I'm going to get brink trucks of money. Yeah. Difference is how they get there. Like Isaiah's was, he played a little more off ball, a little bit cleaner, getting himself open, running through the screens. Where Kyrie's I got the ball here, you go stand in the corner, you go stand in the corner, and you watch what I'm about to do to this poor man's ankles. Where Kemba's a little more in between those two. He will destroy some ankles, he will step back, but he can play off the ball a little bit cleaner, I believe, too.
I definitely think Kyrie is like an old school NFL running back. He's got to get his touches to get in the flow. I mean, if he's not touching the ball, if he's not able to, start sizing up dribbles and stuff like that, he does not play as well. We saw it a little bit with LeBron when they played together. So
that's why him and basically LeBron usually sat back in the first quarters, and you saw Caleb and Kyrie both get about 8 points each. Get them going. LeBron's like, I'll get in the flow of the game.
Yeah.
So that's how I have it. I left off Kristaps and Luka Doncic simply because I don't know what Kristaps is going to look like. We have not actually seen them play together yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Kristaps play in 2 years. And Luka, we saw that amazing rookie season. I have no reason to believe he's not going to do that for his whole career. However, I still have to see it, though. Like, I need to see. We saw kind of with Jason Tatum that rookie year. It's like, okay, this guy's a future all-star. This last year is like, well, he's a player on the Celtics.
Yeah.
So, and obviously there was a lot more going on there. I'm not naive to that, but I want to see if Luka was he's not a flash in the pan. I want to see if he takes another step or if he kind of plateaus and then starts picking it up later. Donovan Mitchell, he got a little bit better, but everyone thought he dropped off because it wasn't quite the same. Like, the numbers might have been a little bit better, but the production, like, the number production's similar, but how you get it and how it affects the game could change. So, I want to see, that's how I feel with both those. Like, I want to see Mitchell, Gobert, Mike Conley, how do they all mesh together? And then Kristaps, Luka, like I just said, we'll see how they play. Your boy De'Aaron Fox, and I just didn't know who to pair him with. Like, I love Marvin Bagley, but we need more with him. Buddy Hield's awesome. Like, I think they can be one of the better they are one of the better backcourts. They almost average 40 together. I think they're going to be good for years to come. Looking around to some other duos, I mean, Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon, that's cool, but I don't know. Like,
can we have a big man pairing for duos anymore? Like, is that something that
it's weird because Aaron Gordon's now playing small forward, and I know he can shoot better, but I still see him as a power forward. It's kind of like Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins. I can't do it, honestly. I love the talent, and one of the other lists I saw ranking the top duos, they have the Timberwolves at 23, but they have Cat and Robert Covington. They didn't even include Andrew Wiggins in it. They included Covington, who I still think should go back to the Sixers, because with this Sixers team, with Covington went back to this Sixers team, best defense of since who knows how long it's been.
And that they have a three-point shooter finally.
And then they have somebody who can space the floor. Exactly. So
I will say, I can't help but notice we both left Blake and Andre Drummond off.
Blake can't stay healthy. Andre Drummond basically gets rebounds and dunks. I haven't seen much of one duo that we both left off that I wanted to put on here so bad, but they haven't produced any wins yet. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Devin Booker is a top 5 shooting guard in the league. I don't care what anyone says. I know he hasn't really affected wins as much recently, but as far as his game goes, I don't want to guard that guy. I mean, he averaged 27 points a game last year, 26. He was 7th in the league on a terrible team where everyone was like, "Oh, let's guard that guy."
Yeah.
And then DeAndre Ayton, he showed flashes down the stretch. If it wasn't for Trae Young and Luka Doncic being the freaks they were down the stretch, he's in contention for Rookie of the Year as well. He's a big man. He has a versatile today's game type of big man. Like, I think he plays the way we want Cat to play because he doesn't have as much of a shot, so he has to be a little closer to the paint. I think he's going to average 20 and 10 within the next couple of years. Booker's going to probably average 30 at some point in his career the way he plays because his game is perfect for today's NBA. He's a modern day. I don't want to say he's a modern day Kobe, but like he plays like Kobe in today's era basically. If Kobe grew up in this era with the jump shot and the way he attacks the basket and the Mamba mentality, I say that in quotes because I love that saying because I love me some Kobe, but I hate that saying because it's being overused now. They're like, oh, I had that Mamba mentality. You scored 8 in the fourth quarter of a regular season game. That's not really Mamba mentality.
Like, it's the worst team in the league.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, Mamba mentality I think it should be reserved for like playoff big moments, that type of thing, or like key game big moments, not just every time you make a cool shot in the fourth quarter, basically, or you have a good fourth quarter.
So I know for me, I have a couple that might squeak in. Do you have two duos that you didn't put in that you think?
I think the biggest one was Booker and Ayton. Another one that I think could be interesting. We'll see how they haven't even played, so I don't. Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett. I think that could be fun. I like R.J. Barrett, especially that last game where he almost had a triple-dub. Julius Randle, he's just gotten better. They kind of can high-low it a little bit, no pun intended, but they can play at different levels of the game. I think they could be a fun duo as they grow together. Julius could be that older figure who's seen some stuff in the league, he's played in the 2 biggest markets in the world, basically, as far as LA and New York. Plus, he's had some time in New Orleans next to Anthony Davis and them. So, I think that'll be I don't think the Knicks are going to be good anytime soon, but I think those two will grow together and be formidable, assuming the Knicks don't screw it up in Knick fashion.
Yeah. For me, I actually have Zion and Drew Holiday as one of the duos that could be fun to watch coming in the future.
This thing I had actually did have them ranked actually higher than those ones. I think they had them at 18. So that's
I just think there's so much upside to what Zion can do. And again, we have not seen him in a full NBA game, but just given the spacing in the NBA game, there was a report that came out about that, how he's so looking forward to it. He has every right to be looking forward to the spacing in the NBA game. He is, in my opinion, his game is built for the NBA.
He is Blake Griffin with some extra, I think.
And I think his shot isn't as bad as a lot of people. He definitely needs to get that hitch where he rolls his wrist back before taking the shot. That needs to get out of his shot. But with that said, I mean, I've seen worse jump shots in the NBA be successful. Sean Marion.
Whoa.
I mean, well, there's him or Marcus Camby and
Kevin Martins was a little bit off to the side.
Yeah, Kevin Martin's swing shot. I can't even call it a slingshot. It's just literally a swing shot. But yeah, so they're definitely my most likely to pop into this. And then you mentioned Kemba and Jason Tatum. Honestly, it's going to be Kemba and somebody for Boston is going to break into the top 10 list next season.
And I feel I might look silly for picking Tatum, but it's like he showed so much talent. All the people that quote unquote know basketball in these major outlets say they believe in him being the guy. So I'm going to stick with it because I saw what he did in the playoffs. He has that Kobe type game, like coming off little picks, catching the ball in the pocket and pulling up from anywhere that's needed, driving, create his own shot. But last year it felt like he had all of the bad parts of Kobe Bryant without the good parts in certain moments. I still trust him to get. He's going to average 25 in a game at some point in his career, I believe.
I wish it was Marcus Smart. I hope Marcus Smart can get an offensive game this season. I know I've been hoping for Marcus Smart to get an offensive game for the entire time he's been in the pros. But I mean, he is just so good defensively. If he gets an offensive game to be just a 3-and-D guy, he could pair with Kemba as a quote unquote duo, and that would be probably that's got to be a top 10 duo. I mean, who would want to go up against Bulldog Marcus Smart and Kemba dancing all over you and hitting you with a step back and watching you literally ending careers? I mean, that wasn't Mikey Moore, whoever it was that was guarding him for Pitt in the college. He was a top 5 draft pick supposedly. One step back later, he doesn't get drafted in the first round. So, that's something to be said about that.
That's definitely an interesting one. I think this is going to be a fun season. We're going to revisit this towards the end of the NBA season, maybe even at midpoint, just so I can see how stupid we look or how genius we look in some points. We're going to come back to this. I think this is going to be fun. I can't wait for this NBA season. Like, I love the NBA. The last few seasons have been a little bit like, basically going back to... It's tough to go back to because of how far it's been. Because, I mean, when LeBron went to the Heat, you basically knew they were going to be in the finals every year. It was like, who did they play coming out of the West? So that was kind of interesting, but at the same time, it was like, well, half the damn NBA is already eliminated. And then even after that, it was like, okay, he's back in Cleveland, but it's the Cleveland and the Warriors every year. I mean, this is the first time it's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we might actually have a little bit of duplicity in the NBA for once. It's not going to be predetermined.
I'm excited to see the betting odds, too. Like, everyone's going to pick the Lakers and the Clippers as the top 2. We all agree on that, and that's rightfully so. We pick them as our top 2.
Yeah.
But at the same time, any slight thing, maybe the ancillary parts don't work in LA. Maybe LA LeBron, because he is the king of drama, unfortunately, maybe that kind of spikes things weirdly. Maybe DeMarcus loses his mind and punches somebody in the face. We do not know how things can go.
Hey, and maybe DeMarcus turns back into Sacramento DeMarcus,
and then it's
an old school boogie, and then all of a sudden it's just like...
And then suddenly the Lakers win 79 games somehow, and it's not fun. Who knows? But it's interesting right now compared to previous years. So.
And then, I mean, the one team we didn't talk about anything about a duo with, and probably is still considered a dangerous team in the East, is Toronto.
I wanted to, because I love Pascal Siakam. I think he's a stud. I just don't know, do you say Marc Gasol? Do you say Kyle Lowry?
There's no pairing that you can have with them for sure. But the thing with, and there's just this thing with, there's just so many options in the NBA that you just don't know who's going to really do anything, because there are some teams that don't have duos that can be successful in today's game. So we'll see.
And then there's like Jimmy Butler and the Heat, depending who do you pair him with Justice Winslow?
Jimmy and the Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's a lot of fun coming up in the NBA this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. So before we close out the show, let's go ahead and finish up. We got tomorrow, the NFL franchise tag deadline starts. It is tomorrow at noon. So out of the guys still possibly to be franchise tagged, do you have any that you think might be a bigger deal? We got basically Jadeveon Clowney, Robbie Gould. A couple guys like that.
Grady Jarrett for the Falcons is a big one for me. He proved himself to be one of the. Proved himself to be very Aaron Donald like, especially in that Super Bowl against the Patriots. I know they lost, but he had 3 sacks. He's a force of nature. That fourth down stop. He's one of the better defensive tackles in the league. He's only 24. He's a young guy, and he's a stud. 26 years old. I just saw the number. Sorry about that, but you got to keep him if you're Atlanta. He is your defense. You got to find a way to keep him. I know they're saying they're confident they'll get something done. I don't think there's gonna be any issues, but if you keep him, I think you have a chance to be a playoff contending team. I mean, I know the Saints in that division. It's like, all right, everyone get out of the Saints' way, but they've proven that division is up and down. Nobody wins it 2 years in a row. It seems like this could be. I love Atlanta with Calvin Ridley. I love the parts they have around Matt Ryan. I love both running backs being healthy. Defense they have built comfortably last few years. So Grady Jarrett's the big one for me. I was like, you got to find a way to keep him. I don't know how you do it. I'm not a salary cap expert. I don't know what they're looking at money-wise. You're not going to replace him very easily, and if you do, you're really lucky. So you got to keep him, sign him, forget the franchise tag. You did it so he didn't hit the free agent market early. Don't make him play this year on the franchise tag because very rarely does that work out. It seems like, especially when they're talking about holding out. You don't want them holding out because holdouts more often than not something bad happens, whether it's injury or they're not in shape, so it doesn't work. So sign that man.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same. For me, it's Jadeveon Clowney with the Texans. I mean, if I'm the Texans, I'm looking at my defensive line. I'm like, we need him. Like, don't get me wrong. We've talked about how many questions we both have about Jadeveon Clowney and his actual dedication to the game.
And his pass rushing ability, realistically.
Yeah, his actual ability, yeah. But when he is on, just like we talk about with all these other guys, when it's his day, I mean, he is the guy that killed the Michigan running back and literally picked up the ball looking like the Predator. Like, I mean, he is that man.
He weirdly enough reminds me he reminds me of like Joey Porter back in the day with the Steelers. Like Joey Porter was probably a little bit better of a pass rusher, but the way he plays the run, he's probably one of the best run playing edge guys in the league because I've watched plenty of his games. He has such a unique way of looking like he's going outside with his explosively stupid fast first step for a big man, and then slicing right inside on the tackle, and then immediately meeting the running back.
He does that really well, and it's scary how well he does that. Honestly.
The thing is, when it comes to pass rushing, how I feel like technique-wise, sometimes his hands seem a little stiff, getting underneath the tackles, rounding the corner, his hips are a little squared. Like, still a fantastic player. I mean, I think any of us wouldn't mind having him on our team. Like, I think the Texans, I don't want them to fall into the like, oh, we have J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless, we'll be okay, because having all three of them is what makes you guys kind of scary, honestly. Like, if you don't have all three of them, it's a little easier to stop, because Merciless is awesome, but you can kind of contain him. J.J. Watt's not quite as freaky as he used to be. Now he's basically a guy that bats the ball down. So, I don't know. I think you got to find a way to keep him, or if you get rid of him, you replace all that money and put it on the offensive line. Because Deshaun Watson, while he held the ball and didn't always read quickly, probably 50-50, he was running for his life like, oh my God, I'm about to die and I don't even have the snap yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have a treasure trove in a quarterback in Deshaun Watson.
Top 10 quarterback in the league, arguably, right now. Even.
Yeah, I mean, coming off injury, he played out of his mind last season. If you don't sign Jadeveon Clowney, you need to sign Jadeveon Clowney. But if you don't, for some reason, you're the Texans, yeah, you better spend all of that. Every ounce of money that was going to Clowney needs to go to an offensive line and a fullback and a blocking tight end. You name it, you got to put him out there, and you have to protect Deshaun Watson because otherwise there goes another car season again. Like, it's just going to be that type of level.
You find a way to build a wall in front of that man that would keep White Walkers away and let him just throw to DeAndre Hopkins. Who cares about anyone else going out on the route? I know you have Will Fuller and guys, but you just let DeAndre run around. He will get open, and you let Deshaun Watson survive.
There's a reason DeAndre Hopkins is 99 overall on Madden 20.
And the only offensive player of all those two.
So, I mean, this is the only wall we will condone building. It's the one in front of Deshaun Watson. So, anyways, getting to the rest of the NFL offseason. Any other news you want to talk about?
Well, I think the biggest thing we saw in the NFL recently was the Raiders offensive lineman, Richie Incognito, getting suspended for 2 games by the NFL. It's kind of interesting. That's the most Raider thing I've heard in the offseason so far.
Yeah, definitely. You think with a name like Incognito, I mean, we all know and love all as men the Incognito mode. You think with a name like that, he'd know how to keep out of trouble. I mean, God knows Incognito mode has saved many a men.
Yeah, not exactly staying out of the limelight there. And with them being a Hard Knocks coming up too, this should be a fun Hard Knocks season on HBO with them.
What is it with Richie Incognito on Hard Knocks though? This is the second time, third time, isn't it? Because he's been with the Texans, the Dolphins, and now the Raiders on Hard Knocks.
You might be, yeah. I guess where he goes, fun stuff follows. So I guess you just got to keep him on there. But
Man, change the last name finally. Do something. Make us all feel better about it. Like Jesus.
Richie Incognito, I don't know.
Yeah, like
Anyway, then we look forward to NFL free agency. We kind of missed the big hubbub that's already over, but there's still some pretty good names out there. Is there any of them that, what one really sticks out to you that you think could help a team out going into training camp, or even if there's an injury at training camp?
I think there's a couple out there that I'm really looking towards. Eric Berry. I mean, if you know me, you know how much I love Eric Berry, and especially the Eric Berry for Heisman song. Look it up on YouTube if you don't know what it is. It's by far the gem of all gems to come out of Heisman campaigning ever. But no, in all honesty, yeah, I do love Eric Berry. I do think he could step into any team right now. It doesn't have a safety and definitely stir up a hole with an average level safety. He's not the same Eric Berry as before. He's going to be average to above average, but he's going to be better than Jeff Heath from Dallas, or he's a lot of safeties that are still starting somehow.
He's not the best safety in the league like I think he was at his peak, but I still think he's a starting level safety when he's healthy. Health is the biggest concern if he can stay healthy.
For sure. And the other one is Michael Crabtree. I think Crabtree, veteran receiver, the guy's hands are glue. I mean, he's probably one of the few guys that still catches the ball with his hands. So he doesn't drop too many. If he does drop it, he'll probably be the first to admit it. I mean, I think he can step into a young receiving core, kind of provide that balancing, like we saw with Reggie Wayne with a young receiver core in Indy type of thing. We can see the same sort of thing.
I think he'd be fun in a team like Kansas City, too, that just needs a guy to catch the ball. You don't know what's going on with Tyreek Hill, and really you don't really want to know what's going on with him necessarily. They drafted that young speedster out of Georgia. They have Travis Kelce. He could be old, reliable, get some first downs, that sort of thing. Just a guy that Patty could be like, oh my God, and Michael Crabtree's open.
Exactly, yeah. He could be that sure-handed third down guy, what old Steve Breston used to be for the old Chiefs. So.
And hell, even just in the red zone, you could throw fades to Crabtree and feel pretty comfortable with it too. Because eventually teams are like, oh, let's double team Travis Kelce. Eventually teams will learn to slow him down, which the Colts in the playoff game did not, for example. They let Travis Kelce eat them alive.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Chiefs, they don't seem to be a team that likes to score in the red zone. They seem to score outside of the red zone every time.
They must score from the opposite 20, not the real 20.
Yeah, but like you mentioned Tyreek Hill, we don't know what's happening there. Their run game is still questionable, so inside the red zone, you got to have more than just Travis Kelce to throw to. It's kind of a proven fact. You can't just have one target. I mean, the only team that successfully done it with one target was the old school Chiefs with Tony Gonzalez, because it's Tony Gonzalez.
And even then, they weren't really winning Super Bowls with him, unfortunately. They wanted to, and he's fantastic, and they need something because Andy Reid can't scheme up these magic 50 reverse, double lateral, quarterback reverse, backwards, catapult shot trick plays that he's known for. So they gotta be able to just run a simple halfback dive, tight end stick, maybe slant out route combinations, high low reads, just stuff like that to basically run simple plays that work effectively, like New England's done their entire career.
Yeah, I mean they do it with small guys too. So it's just got to be a simple offensive game plan in the red zone. And as much as we love Andy Reid, I don't think he knows simple from anything. Exactly,
and I think Michael Crabtree can help with those simple plays. A couple other guys that I'm looking at that pop up in my Jay Ajayi, the running back who was on the Eagles. That torn ACL, I think, kind of hurt a little bit of his value and his interest, especially coming in October. He's not a young guy, but he's not an old guy. I think a team that could really use him, like a team maybe like the Colts, who could just use another running back, just a guy that can bang ahead, get you 4 yards. I know Marlon Mack was really good. They have some young pieces like Nyheim Hines, who's a modern-day Darren Sproles. They got some other young runners. They might not sign him. But a team like that could really use the services if he can come back 90%. I mean, he was a touchdown maker for the Eagles and the Dolphins. I mean, he can just move the chains. He's your prototypical running back. Hand him the ball and let him run, and everyone get back out of the way.
And a sneaky team for him that could do well. That they already have a starter, but Seattle could do well with a Jay Ajayi style runner.
They do they do really well. They have multiple running backs. Seems like these years, because trying to replace Marshawn Lynch with one guy just hasn't worked. So he'd be a good fit there. And another guy that I really liked him coming out early in his career, but he hasn't quite panned out, is Corey Legit. He's a defensive tackle. He was drafted by the Chargers. He's done pretty well. I mean, I kind of want the Chargers to keep him and to bring him back, but he hasn't really done as much as you'd hoped, being a first-round pick. He was injured for 10 games last year. He hasn't played the full season in I don't even know how long, maybe since 2012, 2013, something like that. But I think he'd be a good run defender, push the pocket a little bit, just a rotational guy. If someone could bring him in, especially if there's an injury or a holdout or something like Grady Jarrett holds out, and for some reason Atlanta just wants to be difficult. Maybe what you could do is bring him in and just have him compete and be part of the rotation, even when you get Jarrett back. So you could save those guys for the playoffs. You can rotate on long drives if the offense is giving you difficulty. It's like 10 plays in, you could start shuffling people through.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right though. He does need to go back to the Chargers because that provided the Chargers with the depth and the inside attack. I mean, he split inside time with Ingram in there, but I mean, you got Joey Bosa out there just.
Joey Bosa and Ingram on the edges. You just want a little bit on the inside, just so it's not jelly. And you have no linebackers in L.A. Unfortunately, but
L.A. San Diego bull crap.
But you're like 9 deep at defensive back, and you have a bunch like when they in the playoff game against the Ravens. It's like, oh, the Lamar Jackson running game. How do we stop it? Most teams go big. They bring in their big personnel. They're like, nah, we're gonna throw in our dime look, and then they just had 7 DBs because 3 of those safeties, like Derwin James, could do anything.
Yeah.
Derwin James is a young, promising superstar. And then just the way they call plays and the way they set it up. They did it against New England, and they didn't do it very smartly. They did not change the game plan whatsoever from what they did against the Ravens, so they tore that apart. But I think they need the defensive line to be solid with legit to help keep people off of those safeties if they do that again. So I think he's a good fit in LA, too. I think that's probably the best fit for him.
Yeah, I mean, and they got Casey Hayward out there, basically put that man on an island and watch him defend their best receiver.
Probably one of the top 3 to 5 corners in the game. You got Jason Verrett when he's healthy, a top-notch corner. They're deep at corner. They got corners all over the place. They got Denard King too, who's an All-Pro kick returner. But at the same time, he can play some corner for you too. Put him in the nickel. They're really deep at DB. They have one of the best front 4/3s in football. They just keep Corey legit in there. Don't sign for too much, but let him be a rotational piece. That's probably the best fit for him.
Absolutely.
And speaking of guys that I would like to see them go back to one of their previous teams, Kelvin Benjamin is out there. He has been absolutely awful for a lot of his career, unfortunately. He was terrible with the Bills. A few things saying like, hey, you should go to the Giants, put him next to Shepard. And I want to see him just go back to the Panthers. I want him to just go back there, play opposite DJ Moore, who I think is also another guy who's going to make a Pro Bowl or 2 in his career. I think he's going to be fantastic. But just go be a big target for Cam, who's kind of struggling a little bit with health, unfortunately. So just someone who has such a big radius. Cam's not going to throw you the perfect ball all the time. It's his MO for his career, but he'll give you opportunities usually. He's not scared to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Just go out there and be huge, Kelvin. Catch a jump ball and don't complain about Cam's accuracy issues after you get traded to the Bills with Josh Allen, who, was actually really good as a rookie. Accuracy is not his forte.
Yeah. I don't think you can use Josh Allen and accuracy in the same sentence anymore.
I think that's the only time I'm allowed to do it is that sentence right there.
Yeah. But no, I would like, Kelvin Benjamin back to the Panthers isn't a bad idea. I will say, though, for me, I honestly think he needs to make a position change. We do it in Madden all the time. We switch him to tight end, and he's one of the best tight ends in the league. I honestly think at this point, make him a receiving tight end, and you're good. Otherwise, I don't know if he can resuscitate his career.
I don't think he can play out wide in today's league unless it's just for jump balls. He's just a little slow. He's not as athletic as he used. I think that injury did not help him either. And it's weird that the 1 year he's injured, the Panthers have their best year and go to the Super Bowl. So I don't know about his career. I'd like to see him succeed. He seems like a good guy, but there's some work to be done there.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens at breakout years in Florida State, and then all of a sudden he goes to the NFL and just is
rookie year. It's like, oh wow, this guy is going to be something. In a year that we saw Mike Evans as well as Odell Beckham, Sammy Watkins kind of when he's healthy.
Yeah.
But then after that, it's like, oh, where'd he go?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. And NFL free agency should be a little more fun once it gets closer to the training camp time and we see all the holdouts and all of that. So.
Speaking of holdouts, Melvin Gordon, the LA Chargers running back, saying he wants more money or he's going to hold out or demand a trade. I like Melvin Gordon, but I feel like this is a little bit... I don't think he has a full 2 legs to stand on with this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get behind him on this. Like, it's one of those weird things where he's a running back, so it's like, okay, yeah, he's a productive running back, yeah. But let's be honest, your first season in the league, you didn't score a touchdown.
And you haven't been able to stay healthy on top of that. I mean, I don't know if he's ever played a full 16 games. And if he has, he's been in the league for 3 years. One of them had no touchdowns. Last year he had injury issues. Even going to that playoff game, he's not 100%. And LA's deep at running back. They got like 4 guys they like to give the ball to.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know, man. Melvin Gordon, again, another guy coming out of college, coming out of Wisconsin. You're just kind of like, wow, he's going to be really good.
He's a guy you want on your team, and I like his game. He's a top 10 running back. Some days he could be a top 5 with his versatility. It's just he's not a game breaker necessarily either. He's not Zeke or Gurley or Le'Veon Bell.
And it's funny you mentioned Zeke because, to be honest, if Zeke keeps up his little off-field incidents, I would love Melvin Gordon to replace Zeke for the Cowboys. As a Cowboys fan, I would love that because
Melvin Gordon's not going to get suspended for something silly like that.
Exactly. And that's kind of his problem with, the holdout is he's so under the radar that a lot of people don't even follow him. That, they're like, Melvin who? Oh, the guy that didn't score touchdowns his rookie year? Like, that's what he's most known for. It's not
the fact that he's a Pro Bowl running back, really.
And he's really good, and he's just on a Chargers team that's old.
And that's really good, but their window's getting smaller. And Keenan Allen's the guy who's kind of stepped up out of nowhere and turned into that dude as far as offensive playmakers. Mike Williams last year came out of nowhere. Like, we kind of knew him as the 7th pick, but he was injured that first year. Then last year it's like, hey, I'm still here, guys. Don't forget, I'm awesome.
Yeah. And don't forget, I can score touchdowns. There was a reason that I led Clemson to a national championship game. Like, hey.
Hey, look at me scoring the game-winning touchdown and 2-point conversion against the Chiefs. What do you know?
Yeah.
So they don't really need him as much as he doesn't have a lot. That's why I say he doesn't have a lot of ground to stand on. Is it's not like he is the Chargers offense. He's a fantastic piece. He makes the Chargers offense look probably one of the better ones in the league, except when they play the Patriots, of course. But he's unfortunately a little bit, I don't want to say replaceable because that's terrible to say. But as far as the running back position goes, unless you're one of those top 3 to 5 guys, you're very replaceable. And he's probably in that 7 to 8 range.
And honestly, we saw it. Even if you are one of those top 3 guys, in Todd Gurley last season, he is replaceable.
And especially if you're a good running back in a good system. Like,
yeah.
I think while James Conner had a good year, there was a difference between him and Le'Veon Bell. Like, James Conner's really good. I like him. He'll be a good running back. Le'Veon Bell on that team's probably in the Super Bowl, honestly.
Yeah.
Even though they were a mess, and I don't trust Ben Roethlisberger that much, honestly, especially when he's the lead guy on offense. When he had the defense, the running game, and the bounce, he's a good quarterback with those other Super Bowl teams. Right now, where he's leading the offense and he's basically the man, what we saw with AB, all the issues, Le'Veon Bell, all the issues. Like, I don't know. I think they had Le'Veon Bell last year. There were a lot more before, especially with Juju Smith-Schuster broke out. That dude's gonna be a Pro Bowl receiver for years to come. I think he's 21 years old. He can finally have a shot of champagne after the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It's tough to look at though, and it's a running back position that you kind of like. If they don't ask for money early, when do they get their money? Do they get it late? And we see nowadays they're not really getting paid late. It's like, it's a hard thing for a running back to ask for money like this and to hold out. We saw it with Le'Veon Bell. I mean,
he had
to sit out a season.
Suspension basically one time because him and LeGarrette Blount decided to do what LeGarrette Blount and him like to do basically.
LeGarrette Blount, he's named for a reason. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So other than that, he's been fantastic. A minor injury here. I think he's missed 2 or 3 games due to injuries, something like that. He's been fantastic, and the Steelers kind of did him dirty. Which, I don't. It seems weird, and I don't think anyone will agree with me. But take the franchise tag out of the NFL. I hate it, and it's situations like this with Le'Veon Bell or Drew Brees. You can franchise a guy twice, and suddenly they're too old and no one really wants to pay them because the NFL is a short window game. Get your money and get out.
Yeah, it sucks that the NFL has this whole franchise tag. It's cool for some things, but we saw with DeMarcus Lawrence. I'm a Cowboys fan, and it's hard to sit there and watch one of your favorite Cowboys go through this, and you don't blame him as a fan. You're like, all right, yeah, you need to get your money, especially as a lineman, as a running back, a position that takes a lot of hits and a lot of hits to the head. I mean, you got to get paid, and you got to get paid early because otherwise you don't seem to get paid.
And if you're going to do that franchise tag, you shouldn't be able to franchise a guy twice for sure.
Yeah, it's got to be limited to one or
even Kirk
preferably
Cousins.
none.
We saw Kirk Cousins kind of go through it too. It's I know it's a lot of money right there. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's still the average of the top 5 highest paid guys. And the second year it's twice that or something like that. Because I know they were talking about if Kirk Cousins got it again, he'd be making $40 million or something. Obviously no one's going to complain about franchise tag money. The problem is, it's kind of this way. Would you rather get paid your entire life? Say you're going to make $1 million in your whole life. Would you rather get it all at once, or would you rather get paid periodically throughout? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all like to hope we make more than $1 million in our life if we work from the time we're 16 to the time we're 70. But you get the point. You don't want to get all of your money at once because then you're basically in save mode your whole life.
Yeah.
You want to be, and as an NFL player, you're going to be in save mode your whole life, but you want to have a nice chunk to start saving with. You don't want to just have $21 million per se. That's just a rough number. say from his rookie year contract and then the franchise tag, let's say that's $21 million he's made. He doesn't want to have to. Obviously, we would all like that. We would love to just have $21 million no matter how we get it. But at the same time, if you're a smart person, you want to have a nice chunk built for the rest of your life, your kids' life, the kids' life, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, but anyways, that's
pretty much how I feel about it. Is there anything else you wanted to add at the end here?
Nah, check us out. Continue to check us out on Spotify, Anchor, Overcast. We just got added to Overcast. We got a YouTube channel. You'll find it in the link on our Facebook pages. Just continue to check us out.
And with NFL season fast approaching, we're going to probably change upload dates. We'll see once that gets a little closer to the NFL regular season. We're going to have training camp coverage. We're going to have NBA season starting. We're going to have the playoff time, the home stretch in baseball coming up, college football. We're going to be covering all some really good fights coming up. We'll probably touch more on next week. The fights this week were pretty good. It was nice to see Uriah Faber turn back the clock with the fastest finish of his career. Feel for Aspen Ladd getting just taken out in seconds in her quote-unquote hometown. There's some really big fights also coming up in addition to these ones. I just touched on these ones. They're really good, just not quite big-time box office fights. So we'll talk more on some other fights coming up. We got all sorts of coverage we're going to be working on. Continue to stay with us, and thank you very much for tuning in. This is High Low Sports. I'm DJ. That was Kelsey. We'll see you again next week.